Christ is risen. This is something most people still misunderstand about Fatima. When we talk about the warnings of Fatima, we usually reduce them to politics or economics, to Russia as a nation, to wars, to history. But the warning was deeper than that. It was not only about, a country, it was about a spirit, an error, a spirit that flattens, a spirit that takes what is vertical and drags it down into the horizontal, a spirit that turns religion into something manageable, something political and administrative, something safe. And if we're honest, that spirit is no longer something out there. It's something many people have encountered in the legacy churches of modern Christianity. And that is why something else is happening at the same time. Over the past year, strong data shows young people have been coming back to church, especially to traditional places like Orthodox and TLM churches. They are searching again. They're asking bigger questions again. And that should be a moment of extraordinary opportunity. And it is. But it's also a moment of danger, because a generation that's coming back hungry for reverence, for sacrifice, for transcendence, can still be handed the wrong package. Young men are not leaving secularism and legacy mainline churches because they're too hard. No, they're leaving because they're not hard enough. They are searching for challenge, for sacrifice, for reverence, for transcendence, not as an aesthetic, but as something real and as something that's acting as a rule and standard in their life. And that is why the life of Father Walter Chishik matters right now, not as history, but as an answer. Walter Chishik matters to me personally because when I look at his early life, I recognize something. Like him, I was not especially religious as a boy. And like him, I got into tons of fistfights. Like him, I loved a challenge. That instinct to test yourself, to take the harder path, was there from the beginning. He was born in Shenandoah, Pennsylvania in 1904, the son of Polish immigrants. Pennsylvania formed him, and that matters to me too because Pennsylvania is my home. Before anyone saw him as a holy man, he was known as a rough kid, combative, restless, always pushing against the limits. And in his own recollections, he described himself as a born brawler, a gang leader. So when he said at the age of 13 that he wanted to be a priest, his family couldn't believe their ears. But his conversion did not erase his pugilism. He just redirected it. As a seminarian, Walter Chishik threw himself into discipline, with that same intensity he had once brought to fighting. He chose the hardest disciplines, the hardest paths. He even chose the Jesuits in part because of obedience, the very thing he resisted and found the hardest to do. He wanted what was difficult. Walter Chishik was a true contrarian of his age. At a time when many men of his generation were toasting secularism over champagne and cocktails, he confronted it with his own sweat and his own tears. Pope Pius XI was calling for something, daring men willing to receive special training to be ordained for the Russian mission and to go behind the lines incognito into the Bolshevik world to minister to the souls trapped within that hellscape. And believe me, it was a hellscape. Walter Chishik volunteered for that mission. He studied for it at the Rusicum in Rome, and he was ordained in the Byzantine Rite in 1937, I believe. He entered into the Soviet Union in 1940 under an assumed identity. He didn't want to analyze that world. He didn't want to debate it from a distance. He wanted to enter into it, to suffer in it, and to spend himself there with sweat, with tears, with blood, and ultimately with his whole life. And that instinct led him east. That's another place where I feel connected to him. My own path also led east, both liturgically and geographically. Now, I only lived in that land for 3 years, and Walter Chishik lived there for more than 20. But what mattered for him and what matters for me is this: he did not see East and West as enemies. And we get this online with these debates that people think that they're two mutually exclusive, Orthodox and Catholic. He brings the best together. Walter Chishik tried to see the best in both. And that's what I try to do, on YouTube, is to see East and West as sisters, not in competition and not collapsing into each other, but meant to be reconciled, to strengthen one another, to stand together, Orthodox and Catholic. For Walter Chishik, the hardest road, however, was still ahead of him. In 1941, I believe, he was arrested by the NKVD, which is the forerunner of the KGB. They arrested him as a spy. And then came the Lubyanka prison, the worst prison in the Soviet Union. Then came interrogations, 5 long years of solitary confinement, torture, the long years in the Gulag. He would spend more than 2 decades in Soviet captivity and Siberian exile before finally being released in a prisoner exchange in 1963. And this is where everything just changes, because the Gulag did not just test his strength, it exposed his limits. The boy who had always tried to conquer, every challenge, reached a place where that simply no longer worked, where toughness broke and where self-reliance just failed. And it's there that Walter Chishik discovered something deeper than his strength. He wrote about this. He said, the fullest freedom I had ever known came from abandoning my will to do only the will of God. That's the turning point. Not resistance and white knuckling it, but Christ-like surrender to those who slap you on your cheek and steal your cloak, all the while giving them the other, just as Christ taught us. And from that surrender came something that the Soviet system could not touch. He continued to serve as a priest in the underground, secret baptisms, offering liturgies, hearing confessions, strengthening the dying. And he wasn't doing it anymore as a man proving himself, but as a man empowered by God, by Christ. He later said in his memoir, nothing could separate me from him because he, God, was in all things. And the Soviet system could not take that from him. Once he surrendered to God, he found God in all things and all people. And for me, this is not just a story from the past. My own late spiritual director had Father Walter Chishik as his spiritual director, and he shared with me great aspects and stories about his character. So this is not just something that I've read. It's something that has, however humbly, been handed down into my own life. When Walter Chishik returned to the United States in 1963, he came back not just as a survivor, but as a witness to a kind of Christianity that simply cannot be flattened, a Christianity that is vertical, that's sacrificial, that's demanding. And this is where the tension becomes unavoidable, people, because the problem is not that the church lacks witnesses like Father Walter Chishik. There are many men like Father Walter Chishik, and we have Joe Stalin to thank for that, because the gulags produced all kinds of men like this. We know about Walter Chishik because he's an American, and he had access to the Jesuits and to printing presses and interviews, and he was released eventually. But there were many more men who went through the gulag and are just as holy as he was. I think of Cardinal, Joseph Slippy, who endured all kinds of torture, all kinds of deprivations. The problem is not that the church lacks witnesses like this. The problem is which witnesses are being elevated and which are being overlooked. That's the problem. At the very moment, young people are coming back, hungry for reverence, hungry for transcendence. There's a real danger of us losing this opportunity. A providential moment is really opening, and the response coming from above can seem strangely out of step with it. Because Walter Chishik is the kind of priest, saint, hopefully, many young converts are already looking for, whether they know his name yet or not. He had a hidden priesthood. He had endurance under persecution, total surrender to God, a man broken out of self-will and remade into true freedom. He's a trailblazer for them to emulate, a man who went behind enemy lines, the Bolsheviks. He went behind enemy lines not to comment on the crisis on a blog, but to bleed for the souls of people who didn't even know him. But look at the counterpoint. A contemporary of Walter Chishik is Archbishop Helder Camara of Brazil. He's being advanced towards canonization. His cause was opened in 2015, and Rome advanced it 4 years ago, moving it closer to the venerable stage. Now, this is not a denial that the church must care for the poor. This is not a denial that the church must speak for justice. And this is not a denial against Archbishop Camara. But it is about something deeper than all of those things. It's about the model of holiness we place before young converts, because these are not the same thing. Walter Chishik represents vertical Christianity, a spirituality of complete surrender. Father, not my will, but thy will be done. A life hidden, sacrificial, surrendered, and rooted in union with God, even in silence and suffering over a couple decades of life. Helder Camara came to represent a far more activist model, you might say, railing against poverty, against injustice, against structures and social inequities, and the kind of ecclesial language that became associated with liberation theology. His admirers saw him as a prophetic voice for the poor. His critics saw a churchman who was too identified with those horizontal categories that Pope Pius X warned us against. The question is not whether concern for justice belongs in Christianity. Of course it does. The question is this: which public example is being rewarded right here and right now? Which one? Which of these two contemporaries, born around the same time and dying around the same time, is being proposed for our emulation? Note, I want to stress this. I'm not questioning whether Helder Camara cared for people. I'm not questioning whether or not he had a deep devotion to Jesus. I'm not questioning any of that. He was probably a much holier man than I am. The question, however, is this: which public example is being rewarded right now? Which of these two contemporaries, born and dying around the same time as each other, are being proposed for our emulation, for young converts to follow? Because at precisely the moment when many young people are discovering or rediscovering the faith and asking for transcendence, one of these models is being advanced, and one of these models is being set aside. That should make us pause, because if Fatima was about warning us against a spirit that flattens religion, and we in the East, we know that well. You live under Leninist Marxism, everything's flattened. Pulling religion down to the horizontal, then we have to ask, are we in danger of reinforcing that very same spirit even now by the examples we elevate, by the lives we hold up, and by the saints we choose to recognize and those we elect to not recognize. And then there is an even darker irony in all of this. Ioan Pacepa was one of the highest ranking defectors from the Soviet bloc. And he claimed before he died that Soviet intelligence did not merely exploit liberation theology, that theology model advanced by Archbishop Kamara, but the KGB created it as part of a much broader campaign to weaken Christianity and the West from within. That claim has circulated widely in Catholic circles since it came to light in 2015. Still, even as if somebody wants to dispute that claim, it lands with a lot of force, because the very forces that tortured Walter Chishik, Patriarch Yosef Slippy and others, the very forces that tortured them in Siberia and in the gulags understood the power of flattening religion. They understood the power of dragging it out of the realm of sanctity, surrender, and worship, and recasting it in horizontal social political terms. That was the pressure that Walter Ciszek suffered under. And not only him, but others, as I mentioned, like Cardinal Yosef Slippy of the Ukrainian Catholic Church. And it's hard not to feel the contrast when a more horizontal model of sanctity can seem institutionally fashionable, while a witness like Walter Chishik has now been canceled. Yes, Walter Chishik's cause for sainthood was terminated on April 18th, 2026, last week. Now, that brings us back to Fatima, because if Fatima warned not only about Russia as a nation, but about a spiritual error, then the real question is this: what kind of saints do we elevate in response to that spirit of error Our Lady of Fatima warns us against? Right now, many young men are already answering that question. They are thirsty for figures like Walter Chishik. He united East and West, Catholic and Orthodox, in his person. People thirst for his example because he was real, and he had the cojones to counter the fashionable social justice, horizontalized Marxist spirituality dished out by the pseudo-gurus and the pseudo-therapists and the pseudo-intellectuals of his day. Which is why I believe something needs to be reconsidered. The decision to close his cause for canonization should not be the final word. Yet I defer to the Church's wisdom and not my own. Why? Because we've seen this before. For example, the Divine Mercy devotion associated with St. Faustina, it was shut down by the Holy Office in 1959. And that restriction was later reversed in 1978, leading now to the Church's broad embrace of this beautiful devotion to Divine Mercy. That can happen again, because devotion to Walter Chishik already exists organically among people who recognize in him something they're not finding elsewhere. The Church does not need to manufacture saints for this moment. It just needs to recognize the ones already speaking to it. And Walter Chishik is one of them, because he shows with complete clarity and charity what real freedom looks like. Not the freedom of, control, not the freedom of comfort, not the freedom of doing what you want, but the freedom of total belonging to God. As he said, God expects no more of us, but he will accept nothing less of us. If you want more details about this particular video, join me on Patreon, where I'm going to be talking more about what I learned about Father Walter from my old spiritual father. And subscribe to this channel, like it, and comment below. Thank you.